let me explain the root of your insecurities. And first of all, the most important thing to know is that it must be an autobiographical reason. So there is a storyline, something happened in your life that is responsible for you being insecure. It's not genetics. Yes, there might be a genetical predisposition that you're maybe by nature a little bit more neurotic, but not insecure. So there's also this quote, genetics loads the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. So yes, maybe you're a bit more neurotic, but then something happened in your life that truly confirmed your beliefs, and then you started to become insecure. And if you want to resolve your insecurities, you have to work this out. And that's first of all a positive and good news, because it's not like that's just the way you are and you cannot change anything about that. No, you can work on that, even though if you're maybe a little bit more neurotic, you can work on your insecurities and you can overcome that. It's something learned. Studies have shown that. Now, I want to give you a couple of examples. 2 examples actually from people I worked with where their childhood formed their thinking. And when you're a kid, maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you're basically just taking everything in unfiltered. So whatever you learn, you just feel like it's the way it is. Also, for example, the relationship with your parents. This is probably where the insecurity is coming from, like mother, father, 70% of the time. You idolize them, right? Those are just, your parents. Those are the authority in your life. And if they treat you in a certain way, maybe they're even kind and lovely people, but they tend to give you more compliments when you're performing well, and now you are insecure if you don't perform well. But maybe they still love you, but they treated you a certain way. You thought, okay, I am worthy if I perform well. Just already as a small example. So something in your childhood that formed all that. Now, one example, I once worked with a client. He always felt like a burden, and he felt very insecure at work, especially with his boss, right, which is also an authority figure. But also when he, for example, had to call like the finance department, he felt like a burden. Oh, I need to ask this question, they probably don't like me. Or if I have a great idea and I need to stand up and say something bold and stand up for myself in business meetings, they maybe think I'm just a burden, I just have a stupid idea. And he always felt this fear and insecurity. And then we really boiled it down to the specific feeling like a burden. And then I asked the random question. Sometimes something very powerful comes out of that, sometimes not at all. I asked the question, where have you ever felt like a burden before? What is actually the first experience in your life when you felt like a burden? And then he thought about it. And he said, well, I don't think it's connected to that, but when I was a child, we moved to California with my mother, and we came from like East Europe. We didn't speak English properly. My mom just got divorced with my dad. My mom had a well-paid job because she studied something back in her home country, but they don't accept that here in the US. So she has a low-paid job. Everything was difficult. I was like 8 years old, and my mom like cried a lot, and I somehow got the feeling that I am a burden. I'm an additional burden to all of that. There's a lot of stress coming at the same time. So I was trying to not make a scene. Like if I hurt myself when I play football, I just didn't tell my mom. I always said everything is fine. I never put any additional pressure on my mom because I felt like there's already so much going on. And while, having this conversation continuously over a couple of weeks, we noticed that this feeling of being a burden, something that he carried around throughout his life, and he learned that already in your childhood. And what we have to understand here, this insecurity of feeling like a burden is actually quite a great behavior. It was quite caring towards his mother, I see she's already stressed, I don't want to be an additional stressor. It's actually quite beautiful, quite nice of you, quite empathetic. That's great. But it doesn't serve you nowadays anymore. And this feeling of being a burden in this situation, this is often what kids are doing. They generalize. They just feel like, oh, this is with my mother and my mother is my life and my world. Like, this is my major primary caregiver. My father is not here anymore. So that's how life must work. And then you walk through life, and then you're in your job having a boss, particularly, again, an authority figure, just like your mother back in the days, and you again feel like unburdened. That's why he, by the way, started a business at some point and just did his own thing. And then he sold it, though, and he had to work for a couple of years for this business then. And then those feelings emerged again, feeling like a burden. So that's an insecurity coming from the past. Another example, very straightforward, somebody growing up in a family where there's a lot of, it's a lot about success, performance, highly academic family. And there was often also a lot of competition going on between the siblings, performing high, having better grades, having another certificate or whatever. Already early on he noticed this. And his parents, they even criticized him when he didn't perform well, and they gave him a lot of like confirmation and love when he was performing well in school particularly. Nowadays, when he's at work with somebody, or just with their friends, somebody is doing better and performing better, he again feels like this little child having dinner with his parents and his siblings and being criticized that he's not doing better than his siblings. So he feels very quickly jealousy if others are better. And then he doesn't like those people. He even tend to put them down. He tend to have arguments, and he tend to, have actually bad relationships with people who are performing better than him. He couldn't get inspired by that because he always felt threatened that somebody would pull away his love because, again, he is not good enough. And that's an insecurity that was coming as well from your childhood. And there are thousands of more examples. And I'm asking you right now, you're having an insecurity. Where is this coming from? Maybe you know the story already. Maybe not. That could also be the idea. But let me share this outlandish idea again. 70% of the time when people are struggling with insecurities, it's about the way they grew up. Maybe even 80%. And probably it's something with your parents, something with your mother or father or both of them. And I'm wondering, what do you think about that? That's one of the key connections we need to make here. This is where you'll learn all that. And back in the days, you idolized your parents. Your parents have been your world. And that's why as a child, in your perception, they must be always right. And even if they criticize you, you have this weird conflict of, wait, but I'm me. I'm good enough? I thought I'm good enough. But then you idolize your parents so much and you think, well, they must be right, and they are my parents, they know everything. And then you just take it in as it is, even though it might be totally wrong. And now you're carrying around this insecurity throughout your entire life. Now, if you want to work on that, you can. Again, it's not genetics, you can learn that. It's neuroscience. In certain situations, it triggered a certain belief throughout your entire life, so you thought this over and over again, and your brain works according to the quote, use it or lose it. So a certain brain pattern always arose in certain situations over years, maybe even decades, and you strengthen this pathway so much it's like a highway. And this other thinking pattern of, I am good enough, I'm worthy, I'm having a high self-esteem, this is not a highway at all. You can barely see it. So the challenge is that you train those other thinking patterns and let go of this highway. And the less you use this highway pattern of, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm a burden or whatever, this highway becomes smaller. Use it or lose it. So the highway will become smaller, and this other healthy path that is helping you, that you train over weeks and months and years, is growing faster and bigger, and then you learn to be more secure. And that takes some time, especially if you're like in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and you've been insecure over decades. That's a thought pattern that takes a little bit of time to shift it. And there will be still situations when you're a little bit backlash. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. But you have to learn and work on that. And one strategy is really to learn it by effort, to deliberately steer yourself in this direction. You can learn that. Cognitive behavioral therapy has shown that, but it is some effort. It's not just some snapping with the fingers and suddenly all your insecurities are gone. It takes some time. Insight is very important. That's why most of this video was about insight. Where is this coming from? If you name it, you tame it to a degree. And then neuroscience kicks in, you know, rewrite your patterns and override them again and put the effort into and remind yourself, become aware of, oh, I'm thinking again this way. Let me choose another way. If you want some help with this rewiring of your brain, hit me up. Let's talk. This video is just a big picture video for all insecurities, for everybody. I want to get to know you. And I want to actually totally for free build a strategy with you. So we're sitting there for an hour and come up with a custom strategy how you can work out your personal insecurities. And that then at the end of this call, we of course can decide whether we can or want to work together for a while and go this path together. But the strategy call will be for free. And all you need to do for that is just press the link below and sign up for a call. So we just get to know each other, and I'll share with you a couple of specific insights based on your particular situation. All right, so talk to you soon and have a good day.